to satisfy the nation, satisfy the international community, but what has it really achieved? And you know, you have the mounting costs involved, and half these people who are being charged, for want of a better word, are the walking dead anyway. You know, most of them are completely knocking on, I won't say heaven's doors, but you know, death's doors at least. You know, so that's the situation in Cambodia. And the other situation that I think is quite important is Lebanon. Now, Lebanon is unique. Now, as you know, Lebanon was set up to deal with the killing of Prime Minister Rafik Hariri. Now, you must understand, the whole concept of international criminal justice is genocide, crimes against humanity, crimes of aggression, and so forth. This is the murder of an individual. Now, the murder of an individual should rightly come within the jurisdiction of the domestic courts. I mean, if you imagine that every single murder you set up a special tribunal, where does it go? So again, but this was something that somehow or the other went through the UN, had its support from the powers that be, and a special tribunal is created. So this, to me, is a classic example of when everyone feels, yes, this is something wrong, great, we'll set up the tribunal. But then you have a major conflict where people are dead, and because you have a political affiliation, everyone ignores it. You know, so it's a glaring fact that Lebanon, to me, is a classic example of how the international criminal justice system goes wrong. Just imagine, for every murder you set up a tribunal. Is every prime minister who is shot in the world, you need to set up a tribunal? I mean, where do you go? Where does the domestic legal system go? You know, so, but in any event, by special resolution, it's been created. Now, if you set something up for Lebanon, you would imagine sitting here that something should be set up for the Israeli-Palestine conflict, or something should be set up for what's happening in Sri Lanka, which is almost genocide. As you know, if you've read the papers, in their final onslaught that the army is doing, they're preventing the United Nations from giving aid. Civilians are trapped in the conflict zone, about 100,000 of them. And you know, the UN special envoy is there, and you know, asking them to stop, and basically they've told the UN envoy to go and fly a kite. And you know, what do? Nobody does anything. You know, there are more and more calls. Secretary Clinton has also made a request to stop the fighting, to let the civilians come out, but nothing is happening. There is no medical aid. Many are dying from, they're being kept in refugee camps, which are, I mean, they're called refugee camps, but they're nothing better than prison camps in Sri Lanka, and no one is really able to do anything. And if you look at it in that context, you find the murder of one person as opposed to what's happening in, say, Sri Lanka, or what happened in Israel. It really begs the question, and you know, so you know, is this really working? Now, I personally see a solution. I see a solution if every country in the world is a signatory to the Rome Statute. I see that being a solution. If everyone is a signatory, then obviously the court can intervene whenever anything happens. But as it stands at the moment, and if you look at the Sudanese position, for example, if I were a leader of a country that had not signed the Rome Treaty, I wouldn't, really. And if I'm interested in some rather heinous crimes as part of my rule, then really I shouldn't be signing the Rome Treaty, you know, because enforcement basically doesn't take place. That's the reality. I mean, an example is you have a warrant of arrest that's been issued. He's traveling everywhere, and every country he travels, the first thing he says is, look, they can't do anything to me, I'm here. You know? So where does it go? You know, where does it go? Now, in conclusion, and again, I don't want to read the 12 pages that I've written. In conclusion, I think what what really needs to happen is that there has to be a really in-depth analysis about how the system is functioning as it stands. And I think as far as the UN is concerned, there also needs to be some form of mechanism where superpowers are not allowed to use their vetoes in situations where a crime against humanity is concerned. I think if there's evidence of a crime against humanity, then it really should be allowed to go through by the setting up of a special tribunal and so forth. If you have the veto power, then I think the only thing that it tells everyone, especially countries that haven't signed the Rome Treaty, is that, look, it doesn't work. It really doesn't work, and really the countries where the problems are occurring are the countries that haven't signed. All the countries that have signed are countries that you could not imagine any of these crimes occurring to begin with. You have it in the European nations, and I mean, if you look at the membership, these are not countries where these problems are going to occur. They are occurring in non-member countries, and you have a jurisdiction problem. So, in conclusion, I hope, first of all, I hope that the translators have got across what I've been trying to say. But assuming that they have, what I think lawyers need to do is to think about these issues, is to pursue these issues in whichever way they can, in whichever forum they can. But having said all that, until and unless we have a system of justice which becomes applicable to everyone in the world, there will always be the situation of people trying to cross the boundaries. The reality is, you can imagine, if you are in a country that signed the Rome Statute, you would think twice perhaps before committing any of these offenses, if you know that you are liable to be arrested and so forth. And coming to the arrest, the UN doesn't, as you know, there's no special police or security unit that assists in this arrest. It's not, you can't go into a country and arrest someone. You can hope that he goes to a member country and then they arrest him. But again, whether they do, they don't, and if they don't, what are the repercussions? What are the sanctions? So these are still issues, but we are on the right. I believe we are on the right step. We've taken the right step with the setting up of the ICC. A lot needs to be done, but perhaps in the future things will get better. So I hope that's been beneficial. Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup à Maître Siva Sivantanan. Je voudrais d'abord le réconforter en lui disant que j'ai vérifié moi-même et que la traduction de l'anglais en français était irréprochable. You had a wonderful translation, Siva. Don't worry about that. Je le remercie pour ce qu'on peut considérer comme un message d'espoir. Je pense que Siva a eu raison de souligner le vide que constitue l'absence de certaines grandes puissances qui n'ont pas adhéré à la Cour pénale internationale, mais laissez-moi quand même vous dire que 108 pays, sauf erreur de ma part, à moins qu'il y ait une ratification ces derniers jours, mais je ne pense pas, 108 pays ont adhéré. Et puis-je vous rappeler que la Charte arabe des droits de l'homme de 2004, dont peut-être nous parlerons tout à l'heure, a été ratifiée en numéro 1 par le Maroc. Vous avez été les premiers à ratifier cette charte. Puis-je alors vous inviter à réfléchir à la ratification par le Maroc de la Cour pénale internationale? C'est une question qui également devra être abordée. Je pense, et je termine, que notre confrère a eu raison de faire la distinction entre la Cour pénale internationale et ce qui peut parfois être une justice des vainqueurs, Nuremberg, Tokyo, ou une justice créée a posteriori, le tribunal venant après la situation, ce qui, comme juriste, nous impressionne tous, parce que ça n'est pas normal, bien sûr. Eh bien, la Cour pénale internationale, elle existe. Elle a des règles. Ces règles sont en train de se préciser au fur et à mesure des affaires. Et ces règles sont inspirées du droit continental, sont inspirées du common law, mais également c'est une des juridictions qui, sur le plan de l'informatique, est la plus innovatrice. Je ne dis pas que tout va bien, mais en tout cas, il y a là un exemple pour nous tous. Et donc, c'est une juridiction qui est là, traditionnellement organisée dans son fonctionnement, je dis bien dans son fonctionnement, où on demande au tribunal, est-ce que le crime existe ? À savoir, est-ce que les éléments constitutifs du crime sont réunis? Et 2, à qui imputer ce crime? L'imputabilité du crime, la responsabilité du crime. Question très délicate dans des matières comme celles qui sont traitées à La Haye, mais il ne faut pas s'inquiéter du fonctionnement interne de la Cour. Il est assuré. Et donc, je termine également par ce message d'espoir, et nous continuerons tout à l'heure, parce que l'espoir c'est très bien, mais enfin il y a quand même autre chose à côté, il faut le concrétiser. Et avec l'accord de monsieur le bâtonnier El Ansari, je vous propose d'interrompre pour un petit quart d'heure, 20 minutes, et nous nous revoyons ensuite. Merci de votre attention. Merci à vous.